All right, what is up, everybody? We're on take 2 here. Chris and Friends podcast episode 2. I'm with my friend Darin Mazepa, where I feel like this is, we just met, a couple months ago?
Yep.
Right in this place. We had a podcast scheduled for last week, and I didn't tell you the full story. So one of our dogs, a little Jack Russell, she had this terrible infection, still has some lingering effects, but I also am a substitute teacher.
Okay.
On-call kind of guy.
Oh, yeah.
So on Thursday, the lady in charge of that is like, hey, preschool, do you want a sub? And I was like, give me 2 hours. I took 2 hours to think about it. So while instead of podcasting last week, I was in there, kids were calling, Coach Chris, can you wipe my butt?
Yep.
Things of that nature.
That sounds great. That's great.
Anyway, sorry I had to cancel.
Be ready for anything at the drop of a hat. That's the best part about life.
But it was fun, and I never really thought I would get into that. Which kind of led me into how we kind of first started met too with, a friend of mine has a young child, right? They were experiencing stuff, all kinds of things going on in the world these days, it seems, with younger kids and trying to navigate a bunch of health problems.
Seriously, it's true.
So before we kind of go, I guess we need to know, who is Darin, all right? So who is Darin?
All right.
And then let's just start with that.
I'm Darin Mazepa, born and raised right here in the Lehigh Valley, lived in Emmaus almost my entire life, have my practice, Vitality, right on Main Street in Emmaus. Celebrating my 30th year in practice this year. I think that's so cool. And
30 years, Vitality.
Yeah, it's a big deal to me. I'm celebrating. We're going to be celebrating all year long.
Yeah.
Second generation chiropractor. This is kind of like not a lifestyle to me. It's life. This is all I've ever known, Chris. This is like literally how I was, raised. I love to think of it in terms of like explaining water to a fish. I can't think any other way other than just, I'll call it the natural, the holistic, whatever lifestyle you want to say, the chiropractic lifestyle. That's all I've ever had in my life. So it just comes easy to me. And so when I get an opportunity to talk about what it means to live this way, as opposed to a lot of different ways that, other people have found themselves living, I'm down. And when you asked me to join, I was like, let's do this.
Yeah.
This is going to be fun.
We always have these, I feel we've crossed paths a few times, and the conversations are always good. And I don't always get like the ability to network and talk to people just with work and having a kid and all that. So then if you could meet up with people under the guise of like work, call it a podcast,
I love
catch up, talk a little bit. That's kind of what we're going with here.
This is the cup of coffee without the cup of coffee,
right? Yeah, and then with, I guess, a visual that matches. So then like kind of what led you on the path that you're on now? I mean, you grew up with it, and there's always that thing too where you see it was your father, right? There was a chiropractor.
He practiced in Emmaus for 42 years, so there's been a chiropractor in Emmaus named Mazepa for over 60 years now.
That's awesome.
Continuously.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
And when so since the 1960s. So I guess going with that, when chiropractic as a practice, I guess, right? Is that what you would?
Profession.
Yeah. When did that become, like your dad in the 60s? Was he one of the, was it rare to have a chiropractor like that?
Very rare, yeah. And in the 60s, there was this, chiropractors were basically very fringe at the time. Chiropractic was basically created in 1895, so it's not like it's a new thing, but it was just still very much fringe. And there was a point where it was almost like, I don't know what word I want to use. There was, I guess you would say an opportunity for medicine, conventional allopathic medicine, to do whatever they can to contain it and make it go away if you can, if you want to look at it that way.
Sorry for messing with the screen.
It's all right. He's working on it. There we go. Now we're
the audio's good.
Let's go.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
Quick mix up. So 1960s comes around. It's a good time to for, I guess, free thinking, exploring other options.
Right.
You have the holistic route. When your father first started, whatever it may be, you're a young kid growing up in that. Were you involved at all in the business at all?
Funny story about that. My dad used to talk about the fact, I used to go over at his office. We had a home office.
Yeah.
The left side of the house was the house. The right side was his office. And when I was a little boy, 3 years old, he used to let me sit on his lap and stamp the checks.
Oh, yeah.
And one day I remember stamping the checks, and I just turned one over, I'm 3, I don't know what it means. And he goes, no, that's your side. This is my side.
Yeah. That's where the money's getting cashed.
Exactly, right. Like, I would have known what that check meant,
No.
but yeah.
No, that's
so
cool.
that was my involvement with it. But even beyond like the business part of it, I just, this is all I ever knew. Growing up, when I had a sore throat or something like that, he'd throw some kind of supplement in my mouth and he'd adjust me and I'd be on my way. So it was very much a situation where it was incorporated into my everyday life.
Yeah.
I'd go over, when my dad's office moved over onto Emmaus Avenue, I'd go over there, once a week, maybe even every other week at the very least, just to get adjusted. Nothing was wrong with me. I just wanted to make sure I kept going. I was maintaining that.
I selfishly asked just because we're in a barn where I work. My daughter's out here all the time, so she's around this stuff all the time.
Yeah.
But then also, it's like, as a parent too, if you surround your child with whatever you surround your child with is going to affect kind of who they become down the line. So,
Absolutely.
I mean, it could be for the good, for the bad, for the medium, whatever, the indifferent. Then I also thought too, sometimes you see your parents' path and you want to go against it.
Right.
Did you have a period like that at all in your life where you're like, you know what?
I didn't really know. I mean, I looked at psychology. I looked at chemical engineering. When I was a little kid, everything was astronomy. I wanted to be an astrophysicist before I could even say that word.
Yeah.
And so, we all go through these kind of rhythms through life. And the moment when it happened, I was the lead singer of a punk rock band.
Yeah.
And my dad said, hey, I'm going to this convention in New York. Do you want to come with me? And I was like, hey, any opportunity to go to New York is cool with me. I'm thinking I'm going down to the Bowery. I'll go to CBGB's. I'll go to Bleecker Bob's and buy some records. I wasn't thinking convention at all.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, I'll go, Dad. He said, you can even come along as a chiropractic assistant and get your certificate. You can take some classes. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, 17, not really interested. So I get there and we go to the Friday night event. And it turns out this was what was known as the famed or the infamous Parker seminar at the New York Hilton. It was something like 5,000 chiropractors. It was huge. It was massive. And Friday night really just kind of, it was a pep rally. It was just kind of get your energy up. In chiropractic, they call it spizzerinctum, getting your spiz up. And that night, I kind of leaned over and looked at my dad and I said, Dad, I want to be a chiropractor.
You caught the bug.
Yeah, and he was like, all right, that's cool. He said, we can make that happen. We can start looking at colleges and stuff. I hadn't even gotten done with high school yet. So anyway.
What was the name of your punk band? That's what I want to know.
Social FUs, and the U's is ups, so you can figure that out.
Yeah, good.
They went on to become Youthful Aggression, and pretty big band, pretty cool. But anyway, years later, I asked my dad, I said, Dad, you knew what you were doing. He said, I totally knew what I was doing.
Yeah.
I said, that was absolutely on purpose.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's cool. That's cool.
He
totally
what were you in
duped
your
me.
teens, you said?
Yeah, 17.
So I don't know anything about the punk scene at all. I just watched my dad was a bodybuilder.
Okay.
So if we want to talk about dads, back in the day, we always had a gym in the basement. Posters of guys like Frank Zane and Arnold Schwarzenegger, the golden era, we'll say.
Franco Columbo,
Yeah,
Mr.
my
Universe.
dad's short. Yeah, so Columbo was his guy because Columbo was 5'5".
Columbo's
And,
also a chiropractor.
Yeah.
Franco Columbo's a chiropractor.
That's
Friend of
right.
my dad's, actually.
He Dorian Yates was a guy in the 90s. He was growing up in England, and he was growing up at this time with the punk scene too. So I was watching this documentary, shaved head, getting in all kinds of trouble. So I know that there's that element to the punk scene. I also know that there was like that straight edge style with the punk scene. When was that scene like most prominent? Was it?
I would say the peak of it was probably early 80s, early to mid 80s. It evolved over time. It kind of changed as it got later on. And I really love the concept of the straight edge scene. I hung out in D.C., Washington, D.C., and what's known as the Discord House, Ian McKay from Minor Threat and Fugazi and that kind of stuff. And the whole straight edge movement was, be a pillar of society.
Yeah.
There was no alcohol, there was no drugs, there was none of the things that you'd associate, culturally with kind of the punk scene, but very strong on the political side, very strong on the looking out for the little guy. And having a sense of, purpose.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, you think about a lot of the big bands, they all were political bands. The band that changed my life was from England, The Clash.
Yeah.
And The Clash had social justice and social conscience in almost all their songs.
Yeah.
So that's what did it for me.
They I don't know why I just thought of this, but I saw Springsteen performance singing, London Calling in London at that outside park.
Yeah.
Hundreds of thousands of people.
Yeah.
And music has the ability to get people 100,000 in unison doing something.
Right.
We were at the Wind Creek Center a couple years ago. That guy that sings "Take Me to Church," Hosier.
Oh yeah, Hosier.
So,
he's awesome.
He had the whole. I mean, it's a small venue, and you would literally follow. He would tell you to say something, and I guarantee they would do it because once you started singing the song, everybody's kind of in unison, working as one, singing together. It was kind of cool. And I was like, this is like, it's not brainwashing, but it's like, it's got that same effect where you get all these people kind of moving in one direction based off of the sound of the beat or somebody's vocals or something. Yeah, it's cool.
In nature, they call that entrainment. There was a cultural field. There was a field that was created, and we were all entrained to that field.
Yeah.
So we were no longer a me. We were a we, a collective we. And music, and especially music lyrics, can do that for people.
Yeah. And then just that hearing some sound sometimes where it's hard to explain why, and I don't know why. I don't know if you know why, but there's certain music that like just pulls you in. You know?
I think that's the magic of the chords. It's the magic of the, everything. I mean, Einstein said everything is vibration.
Yeah.
Music is a great example of everything being vibration. And that's how it works.
When you were growing up, though, what were you listening to before you got into the punk scene, we'll say?
My brother is 7 years older than me.
Yeah.
Hey, Steve. I always credit him with my love of music because he was totally engrossed in music.
Yeah.
He was very much into the classic rock and the prog scene. So I grew up listening to, I loved Emerson, Lake and Palmer. I loved King Crimson. I loved Yes. I loved Genesis because that's the stuff he listened to.
Yeah.
And there were certain pivotal turning points in my life as far as music goes, and they still stick in my head so clearly. One of them was, I'm downstairs in the basement at my house watching 2020 on a Friday night with my mom. And they were talking about how dangerous the London club scene had become. And how, like bands didn't even want to play because it was just dangerous. They'll throw bottles, they'll throw, pipes, all kinds of stuff at you.
Yeah.
And the song that they used was a song by the ska band, The Specials, called Ghost Town. And here I am in my, 12, 11, something like that, 10 years old. And I just thought to myself, that's different. That music, I'd never heard ska music before.
Yeah.
And I was like, that just sounds different to me. That's intriguing to me. Jump ahead a year, and we had a family tradition where my dad would take us down to Seaside Heights.
Yeah.
And we'd get a room at the Surfside Motel right across from Lucky Leo's arcade. And walking distance to the arcade is always cool with me when I'm that age. And
shout out to Lucky Leo's.
the Lucky Leo's.
They're still open.
Yeah, they're still there.
Lucky Leo's is still down there in Seaside. I haven't been there since I was in high school, and it was
well, it was a different scene then. It was a different scene
back
then.
in those days.
Yeah. Thanks Jersey Shore, right? But there was this one stand. You remember the big wheel where you put a quarter down and you win a prize?
Yeah.
There was one that was records. It was vinyl records.
Oh, yeah.
And every morning when this guy would open up his stand, he'd put the big metal door up and he'd play music. And he started playing this song again. I'd never heard anything like that before. And I finally mustered up the, 11 or 12-year-old courage to go over to the guy and say, hey, what's that song you play every morning when you're setting up, when you're opening up? And he said, it's a song called Planet Earth from this brand new band out of England called Darin.
Yeah.
And I was just like, okay, mental note, that's different.
Yeah.
That's not, that's not King Crimson. That's not Yes. And just kind of paying attention. Jump ahead to where I heard, you already said it, London Calling by The Clash.
Yeah.
And I was like, Steve, I found my exit ramp. You keep going that way. I found my exit. I'm going this way. And I just kind of dove head first into the punk scene. And I looked at the English punk, the LA hardcore scene, the East Coast scene. New York had a great scene.
Yeah, DC, there's this guy, do you know that name, Jocko? I don't know, Jocko Willink, Navy SEAL? He was a big guy in that, and he had on, it wasn't bad, something bad, I feel like, out of DC. But he had a guy that was in that DC scene. I was listening to these guys talking. I had no idea what they were talking about because I wasn't familiar with it at all, but it was like that straight edge. I don't know if there's that anarchy type thing in there too, but it was like, I forget what the band was, but yeah, they were going in. So apparently DC, New York, right? So you were kind of...
There was a Boston scene, and it was great because a lot of these big metropolitan areas would be above or below the Lehigh Valley. So we had our own scene because bands would book a show in Allentown or West Caddy. Shout out to the West Caddy Playground building.
Still open? So what's going on in, where were you playing? Yeah.
That was
I don't know what that is. That was it?
West Caddy Playground building was kind of like the weirdest place to play because it literally was like an open building at a playground.
Yeah.
There were G's Beef and Beer. There was the Airport Music Hall. There were a whole bunch of like little pockets. For a while, there was a place called Oliver J's. This is kind of later scene.
Yeah.
In the early scene, it was anywhere. We would rent VFW halls. We would play anywhere. And it was close enough to Philly, so the bands would be going from Philly to New York. They'd stop somewhere in Allentown and have a show between their Philly show and their New York show, or vice versa. So there was really great music. I mean, like every one of the big bands that you would think of in the punk scene played the Lehigh Valley.
So what made you get out of it then?
I didn't really ever get out. I always say the outside's changed, the inside's still the same. I think it was just a matter of
Starting a career?
Start a career, or just I don't know. I like to look at everything as a constant state of evolution.
Yeah.
I can just as easily these days listen to James Taylor as I can Black Flag. I mean, on the way over here, the song "Boys of Summer" by the Ataris played.
Yeah.
The Don Henley cover. And they did one of the coolest things in that song. In Don Henley's version, he says a Deadhead sticker on a Cadillac. In the Atari's version, they say a Black Flag sticker on a Cadillac.
Yeah.
So great little tweak.
There's a little.
Yeah.
Well, I can relate in the sense that like coaching sports and stuff, it just got to the point where I was just like, I'm kind of ready to move to something else. And it wasn't, the interest is still there, Sure. I would love to sit around and watch a bunch of football games, but I'm just kind of, there's other things that I have more interest in maybe, or you're just ready to take the next step. And everything has its season, right? I mean,
exactly.
Yeah, that's how I feel. Sorry.
You have a daughter,
yeah.
So that changes your perspective.
That's a game changer, yeah.
I have a 14-year-old son, and I love the fact that my 14-year-old son still wants to hang out with me.
Is he freshman? Is that what that is, or 8th grade?
He's at 8th grade. He's about to graduate from 8th grade. But it's just that whole thing of, I know I'm on borrowed time. So if he still wants to hang out with me, I'm going to take that opportunity.
Yeah.
We're going to do that. Our big thing is we love playing games together. We love watching Marvel together, and he's still totally into the Lego scene. So we do some really awesome Lego projects, bigger things now.
Oh, yeah.
We just completed
a house or what?
No, we just did the Razor Crest, the Mandalorian ship. We just did that one, and that was really cool.
How long does that take?
That was about 2 hours.
So you get to spend 2 hours with your kid building something, not common, I don't think, and
we usually do it over time. We'll do like bag
4
1 and 2, and then we'll go do something
Bag
else the
1
next
and
day.
2,
We'll just kind of roll with it.
Either way, though, it's some time you get to spend, and you did say you're on borrowed time. I don't know what the number is. It was something like 70% of your time with your kids is before the age of 8 or 10. Something like that. So,
right.
I mean,
by the time they're 18, you will have spent 90% of the time that you'll ever spend with them.
Yeah.
And that's, I take that very, sacredly, because it's a big deal. Like I said, he's about to graduate from 8th grade, and so his combined Christmas present, birthday present, and 8th grade graduation present is we're going to Japan for 17 days.
17 days in Japan?
So he could look at it on YouTube, he could read about it on Wikipedia, or we could go experience it and live it. So we're doing that.
Have you ever been?
I have not.
How's your language? Japanese skills?
I'm doing Duolingo right now.
Yeah, Duolingo's
I'm doing Duolingo right now.
Feeling good. It gives you the
day
the
15.
burst, ding, or whatever. It throws a gem at you every
Exactly.
once in a while.
I get 5 gems.
You're like the dog.
Oh yeah,
with the bell.
That's right. Pavlovian.
Yeah. Whenever you get that little ding, it makes you feel good inside.
Yeah. 15 streak. I'm excited. So
what do you need to get a streak?
Just saying every day you have to do a lesson every single day. I usually do 3 or 4 lessons a day.
Is your son getting in that or no?
He already did, because he's so into Japanese anime. He did Duolingo so he could understand it.
When I said I don't know the punk scene, I don't get the anime scene.
Yeah, the anime is a whole other world.
These kids are coming in talking about it. I'm like, I know what it is, but I don't know if I want to go down that route. I don't know.
He's one of the few people I know personally who's watched every episode of One Piece.
I don't know it.
That's an anime that I think they're in like 1,090 episodes.
So he's all about that.
Yeah.
What else? What other? So you guys are building some stuff. We talked about some of the things you watch. You're going to Japan.
Music. We do music. We do music a lot.
Like decades. You hitting all the decades?
We'll
in
do
the
all
past
the
50,
decades.
70 years, or
We'll do styles. Again, I'm an immersion guy. Last year I took him to his first major music festival. We went out to Pasadena to the Cruel World Festival.
All right.
70,000 people, a sea of people, and it was like every kind of alt, punk, goth, post-punk kind of music. He got to see Iggy Pop live on stage, and at 74 years old, still Iggy jumping around like crazy. Susie from Susie and the Banshees. First time she was in the States since 2008.
Susie and the Banshees. I don't know that name either.
Okay. They go way back.
You were talking about Iggy Pop. There was I listened to the Metallica. I think it was Lars Ulrich.
Oh yeah, Lars.
Drummer, and he's like, back in the, whatever, a couple of decades ago, he's like, we would look at the Rolling Stones and be like, man, this guy's traveling, like Mick Jagger would travel with his gym. And he's like, man, what the hell is this guy doing that for? This and that. And he's like, now we're the old guys that are traveling with the gym and making sure that we could still, get on stage and put on a show. And so that's kind of cool.
I saw a great meme of James Hetfield and, one of those 2-panel ones. And it said what Metallica fans look like. And it was a guy, long hair, jean jacket, black jacket, jeans, and a whole bit. And that was what Metallica fans look like. And then it said what Metallica looks like. And it's James Hetfield in like board shorts and little like deck shoes and like carrying all kinds of bags on Rodeo Drive. It was like, that's Metallica. That's what Metallica fans look like.
Rodeo Drive. There's a Rage Against the Machine song by that name. But there was a time when I remember, I always kind of like those musicians that are kind of give you the little FU. And it sounds like the punk scene was like that. There's like those musicians from the 60s, friends of my parents would listen to that. My parents would listen to it. So from like Bob Dylan to like Janis Joplin type music. And I love the R&B stuff like Sam Cooke and just artists like that. I like the political movement scene of the 60s.
The rebellious
But
scene.
then when you talked about Metallica too, it's like when Napster came out, I always remember that, I think it was Lars and maybe one of the other guys, it could have been Hetfield, where they went hard and they took it as far as you could take it to try to fight that, and
they also
just to
took
stand
down
up for what I guess being an artist is all about,
owning your stuff, having ownership of your art. Prince was huge. I'm a huge Prince fan, and Prince was that same way.
He did it. People were like,
the whole reason he wrote "Slave" on his face is because he was beholden to this $100 million Warner Brothers contract, and he didn't even own his masters.
And I mean, there's even more recent. I mean, the comedian like Dave Chappelle and stuff like that turned down tons of money because of that. Where it's like, if you don't have control over your art, I guess you are that. What Prince wrote on his face.
Slave, absolutely.
You're indentured servant. You're whatever word you want to put on it. But it's crazy.
Think that's the problem. Music used to be an art. Now they call it the music industry.
Well, that uniqueness of sound that you talked about when you first heard stuff, I think that's important, because I don't hear voices now, and I don't care. There's a country song that could come on. I don't listen to country, but I hear this guy's voice. And I'm like, huh.
There's a guy named Sturgill Simpson.
Yeah, I've heard him too.
He's amazing. He's still like in that alt country realm, but he still plays, with all the, the country acts and whatnot.
Do you know Gary Clark Jr.?
I love Gary Clark Jr.
So you hear that and you're
this
like, well,
is
that's
my
just different.
house.
It's just different, right?
Yeah,
I mean, and then even you talk ska, like with No Doubt and Sublime and whatever was coming out, it's like, that's a different sound.
That's a different sound.
The grunge scene, that's a different sound. All of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you need to have that sort of uniqueness, and then if your uniqueness, then if you can't, I guess, make a living or monetize, and like you're not a dime a dozen when you have that, so you shouldn't be treated like one. You should be able to express your art and then be compensated, I guess, for it. I don't know what I'm getting at here, other than
I get it.
Appreciate the art and.
I always look at it from the perspective of comparing Taylor Swift, and I have to say I'm becoming a Swiftie. Nothing to do with football, but she owns her own art. She writes her own music. She plays her own instruments. She's in production. She's a badass. She's making the stuff. Yet she's a billionaire. Then you have somebody. I'll throw a name out there: Patty Griffin, who is an amazing songwriter, incredible. Writes her own stuff, has her own production. Does all the things. But she's not a household name.
Yeah.
And it's not any reflection of talent, it's a reflection of the industry and how that industry looks at, I say music these days is nothing different than a lottery. It really is. You get a winning ticket and that's it. Taylor Swift happened to have gotten a winning ticket.
Think, just having a 5-year-old daughter, I know a lot more about her life than I ever did. We'll watch something or get a little kid book, so it's like to think that there's some 13 or whenever she signed a record deal, that 13-year-old
from Wyomissing, Pennsylvania, down by Red,
somehow morphed into the world's biggest star. How does that happen? It's like, I think there's opportunities in there too, right? You have to take advantage of those little things that do come. Getting in the door is that lottery ticket, but then it's like, what do you do with it from there?
Right.
I think there's
and
people
how
that
do you
probably have thrown
maintain
that out.
your own sanity and your own health and all that? She seems like she's done that. God bless Justin Bieber.
Don't know.
He's through it.
I feel like, how many child stars?
Right. Oh, that's kind of a pattern. That's kind of a pattern.
Well, they get used and abused, unfortunately, and I guess maybe it goes back to that whole exploitation type of thing with the music industry and some of this other stuff where people get taken advantage of. And
the machinery. You just get chewed up in the machinery and spit out.
And I always hear these bands where you're like, it sounds great. They never catch.
Yeah.
And you're like, why? You don't get why. Yeah. They have the singer, they have the voice, they have this, that, and the other thing, but just never catches. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyhow, we talked about music for a while.
I love it.
So you sang
Yeah, that was a good time.
Passed on. You moved on.
Moved on, and I mean, if anything,
were you doing chiropractic while singing?
No. This is high school.
High school.
My mom used to take me to Easton for band practice because I didn't have my driver's license yet.
I know Easton pretty well. Where'd you go?
It was 3rd Street, 4th Street, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it was fun because it was youth. It was little youthful aggression. It's what we were. It's what we were doing back then, and we all had something to say. The old James Dean rebel without a cause. We thought we had a cause.
Well, why do you think then, as a teen, you went to straight edge, right? When I used to coach sports, it was like once you became like a sophomore in high school, once you could get a driver's license, I always feel like kids would hit like a fork. And you would see someone surround themselves with some kids that were maybe negative influences, and some would go the other way.
Right.
That's just like one fork of many probably that kids have to experience. But there was always this thing around that age, and it sounds like you were in that age. Like, what made that route appealing to you? Was it growing up in a house,
I think it was, I was shaped. It's kind of crazy and kind of a Debbie Downer, but I was shaped a lot by death.
Yeah.
I had so many close friends and, a girlfriend and all these kinds of people that were killed one way or another. And, whether it was car accidents, suicide, murder, like all kinds of stuff. Lockerbie, Flight 103. And it shaped me because it made me love life. It made me want to get the most out of life. I look at it as everything that we do comes down to choices and decisions. And every choice and decision, you talked about those forks. There's infinite forks in the road every single day of our life.
Yeah.
You contacted me and said, hey, you want to be on my podcast? Yes? No? Yeah, I'd love to do that. Let's do that. That's going to be awesome. So it's also how I approach every day. I just watched this little 30-second video by a fella named Sadhguru, and he said in the video, if you wake up in the morning, be grateful that you woke up. Because you're already ahead of 1 million people who didn't wake up in the morning. So your first thing to be grateful for is, I woke up. And I love that. That's such a great perspective to say, I'm choosing to have a great day. I'm not hoping I have a great day. I'm going to use the law of attraction and manifest a great day today. And that, again, that's almost like my base state.
Yeah.
I think that that's so critical to be able to say, I'm going to have a great day. I'm already having a great day, and I'm already grateful because I woke up.
When you had those, I was thinking about something just as a teacher, say, of middle school kids, where a student might have a lot of loss of life surrounding them.
It shapes
and
you.
And then, there's that, I know you said choices and decisions, but there's always that nihilistic viewpoint of death, and then there's like that, my life, every day you're alive is one day closer to the grave, so it's like, let's make it count.
Let's make it count, and that's my perspective. My perspective is this.
But encouraging that in others is I guess that's a thing that I don't really know how to answer right now. Where like, how can you motivate somebody to realize that they're valuable? Like that every day is important when they could be surrounded by all that stuff.
Especially in teen angst. Teenage years are supposed to be angst ridden. That's what we have. That's what we are. If anything, I think it goes back to gratitude. Be grateful that you've got the house that you have. Be grateful that you've got the parents that you have, the siblings that you have. Be grateful. Because it's so easy to look at how wrong everything is. I've had patients over my career where I would ask them, how's your day? And they would say, my sciatic is acting up, I have a headache, got in a fight with my husband. I said, okay, how's your day? How are you? And it's so challenging to see people who just automatically gravitate towards the negative, gravitate towards what's wrong, and you miss what's right. I remember one time I had a person, and I said, okay, stop, hold on. Tell me 3 things that went right today. And she had to pause and reflect much longer than you think it would take to just come up with 3 things that were right, that were good. Give me 3 things that are good in your day right now. And she couldn't.
Yeah.
She had a fight to find those things because we talked about entrainment. Entrainment is that idea of just a collective field of things working at a certain level of organization. She entrained to the concept of what's wrong, and that replaced the concept of what's right. So I had to do a little bit of Jedi mind trick on her to say, stop, pattern interrupt. Tell me right now 3 things. So we would do that every time she would
Yeah,
come
that's
in.
a good idea. That's a good exercise.
Yeah.
That's probably great for kids too. I might
Great
be
for kids.
putting that into my health class
There you
next
go.
Tuesday.
Yeah, yeah.
But before they even say a word.
Let's go around the
write
room
down 3
and
quick.
everybody give me 3 things that were right today. And do it rapid fire, speed dating. 3 things that were right today. And it's simple. I woke up, I had breakfast, I was able to brush I had teeth to brush.
Yeah.
You can start really basic,
So that is, it just reshapes your brain, I think, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it gets you out of the negative side of things, a more positive side of things. And
Right.
I think it gets the ball rolling in that direction. The more,
And that pattern.
it's almost a distraction of things. It's kind of too, where it's like if you're in an anxious state, if you could distract yourself from the anxiety, if you could go for a walk or you could go talk to somebody that you're friends with or something, if you could distract yourself for 20 minutes out of that state or 10 minutes writing things
Huge
down,
thing, huge
then that's 10 less minutes or 20 less minutes of that day that you're in that state, and that's a win, So, I don't know.
Or 20 more minutes, you're in a different state.
Right.
If you want to go to the other
I'm just
side
saying
of
at
the
the
coin.
bare minimum too,
Right,
yeah.
right.
Because I do think it does steamroll or snowball into
It can.
more time throughout the day.
And it is one of those scenarios where, in neuroscience, we talk about habituation. You can just create the habit of finding what's wrong. You can just as easily find the habit of what's right.
So with the mind then, and with what you do for work, people are coming in with pain.
They're not even coming in with pain. I'm not a pain doctor.
If we're just
That's
like,
the beauty
hey,
thing.
What about the sciatica issue? Could I just use that as
Sure,
an example?
sure.
Hey, I have this pain. I feel something, discomfort, whatever.
Right.
But there's that psychosomatic thing too, where it's like, is this person, are they creating this?
I would go the other way, somatopsychic, the
Meaning what?
body-mind.
So the body.
Psychosomatic means the mind's creating the body scenario. Somatopsychic means the body is communicating with the mind and trying to tell it something.
Yeah. All right. That makes. So I get what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah.
So in your mind, not just necessarily what you do for a living, the body
The body is a
is relaying a
vibration.
message to the mind.
If
And
you
then
want
the
to go
mind is
to the point of,
interpreting that, and they are verbalizing things then that, or they're taking on
I
what
think
the
it would
body's
be-
telling them.
I think it would be best viewed as our bodies are a reflection of so many different things. This is I always call it the meat suit. But the meat suit it's got a force inside of it. It's got a spark inside of it. Call it a soul, a spirit, whatever, all of those things. And a lot of times you got to get balance between all of these mind, body, spirit scenarios. Our culture looks at symptoms as the bad guy. We want to make symptoms go away. The practice of conventional medicine is about suppressing a process in the body, even if it's suppressing pain. Pain is not the roadblock. Pain is the roadmap. Symptoms are the roadmap. They're giving us an opportunity to pay attention. My mentor, Dr. Donnie Epstein, always says, pain has one job. It has one purpose, and that's to interrupt a behavior. It's to get you to pay attention to change something. I don't know what that something is for every individual, but it's a matter. That's kind of the things we talk about. And different parts of the body hold on to different energies or emotions or experiences. And so I might look at that person and say, the sciatica isn't the problem.
Yeah.
It's the end result of a problem or the end result of multiple problems. Different parts of the body hold on to different energies. The low back, I always refer to as the 3 Fs: family, finances, and foundation. You could be having stuff going on in your life in 1, 2, or all 3 of those areas, and just through programming, it'll show up down there. I have back pain. How you doing with your bills? How you doing with your spouse? How you doing with your kids? How's your job?
Yeah.
And they're like, what does that have to do with my back? Buckle up. We're in for a journey.
Well, all right. So let's go on this journey. I mean, Well, I think too with I guess in my mindset is always it's like a joint by joint approach where the ankle could affect the knee could affect the hip, and that way where it's not like the pain site is not the
issue.
The issue. The pain is presenting you with information that something needs to be changed.
My dad used to adjust people's ankles and their migraines went away.
Yeah.
He'd
Somebody had a
adjust
bad
their-
knee. That friend of ours that goes to school, knees bothering. She's like, chiropractor that I went with you. She had a knee brace on, limping around every day.
And the
Tried
crazy
some of the
thing is,
supplements that we know about, got a little relief, but
it's not the knee. It's my dad used to always say, the knee is the hapless victim of what's happening above or below.
yeah.
Check the ankle. Check
It's
the
got Kelly
pelvis.
Starrett, that Supple Leopard. You know that book at all?
Yeah.
Kelly Starrett, he was a CrossFit guy, but he's a physical therapist, world renowned. upriver, downriver, upstream, downstream.
Right,
That was
right.
kind of the verbiage that he used where, you know, if your ankle's not doing the work it's supposed to be doing, then the knee's going to be taking on that extra load
Sure.
and doing things and
There's
blah, blah, blah. But then you have the emotional side of things and the mental
Emotions are
side of
huge.
things where
Emotions are huge.
it's not just a physical ailment presenting itself.
No.
Multifactorial everything is, which makes things unfortunate because people don't want multifactorial problems, but
Make it go away.
yeah.
Okay, let's address what the it is. And I love at least opening people up to that. And when they start connecting the dots and they see this as more than just a physical thing, I'll tell you, it's life-changing to watch those people.
Yeah.
Those gears start grinding. They're like, okay,
They
there's
take
something
control
bigger.
too. Like that's the thing too. I think if you can encourage them to see it, and then if you actively fix your problem, you had control in that, and I think that builds like that self-esteem, self-efficacy. You feel better about yourself.
I love saying success breeds success. You get a little success, it's going to make you want more success.
Yeah.
And then it's going to be a bigger success and bigger and bigger.
And I'm only equating what I said to something I read with anxiety and exercise, where
Absolutely.
the individuals that combined whatever the anti-anxiety medication was and exercise, and the exercise alone group, they saw similar results where like 35% didn't see a return of symptoms. Those that just had the medication only had like a 9% success rate.
Right.
What they found is those that physically said, I am going to do something, I'm going to exercise, they just put ownership on healing themselves, and by doing that led to a higher rate of adherence or success, or however you want to word it.
So, did you hear what you said in there?
Possibly, I hope so.
Anti-anxiety and reduction of symptoms. That's not my gig. I'd
Right.
rather be pro-joy.
Yeah,
I'd rather find a way of getting greater joy into that person's life, never even addressing the anxiety. And I don't want anti-anything. I'm not interested in creating an anti-state. I'm interested in creating a brand new pro-state. That's a different game altogether.
yeah,
When you can say to somebody, I don't even care about the amount of pain you're in. I care about the circumstances that exist for your body to create the necessity for that pain. We're going to work on the circumstances. You want to do a fun exercise?
sure.
Say, we're in an elevator.
Alrighty.
Just say, hey, what do you do?
Hey, what do you do?
This is my 30-second elevator pitch, and it's never 30 seconds. I love it to be 30 seconds. I talk about Einstein's general relativity theory, E equals mc squared. Everybody's heard E equals mc squared. I put my fingers like this, and I say, here's the E, here are the equal signs, and here's the M. We can't really discuss the C because the C is a constant. It doesn't change. But the E and M can change a lot. Every version of medicine out there almost exclusively works on the M, works on the stuff, the matter, the mass. Matter is very dense. It moves slowly, it vibrates at a lower level, lower frequency kind of thing. What I like to say is almost all medicine is working on your M, and you will get as far as you can with having your M worked on. I work on the E, and if the energy can change, and if the energy shifts, your matter has no choice but to shift also, because that E is influencing the M, and we can bang and hammer away at the M as much as we want, but we're missing the E.
So what do you do then for the E? In your profession? No, not in your profession. You are an individual in a profession. So with that mindset there, I'm sure all people in the chiropractic profession do not view things that way.
Absolutely. It's so true.
What do you do then that will separate you? How do you get focusing on what you called the E, right?
I listen.
Of that.
I listen. I listen to the body. I listen to their words. I actually am a doctor who reviews their intake forms. Our comprehensive health profile is 6 pages long.
All right.
We call it comprehensive for a reason. We don't ask you just what's wrong. We ask you what's right.
Yeah.
We ask you a lot of social science questions, not just biomedical questions. Because this is who we are. We are all of these things. There's an entire stress survey that's in there. How are you doing with your perception of your daily stresses? And we also ask what's important to you. One of my favorite questions to ask is, what do you want? What do you want out of your experience here at the office? And that's really important because...
What do you get there? What's a quick answer? Oh, I just want to feel good. But then you got to do you have to dive into that more then? Do you try to pull more out of them, or you just accept what they say and
I love the idea of going behind the curtain.
Do you flank them though? You don't come straight. Do you come straight at it,
Dude,
or do you just
know
try
me
to
well
flank
enough to
them?
know I'm a straight shooter.
All right.
I
Flanking
love.
works. They use it in the military.
I know,
Apparently.
but I love tough love.
All right.
I love tough love. I'll call people out on their bullshit all the time because that's all it is.
People like that too sometimes.
Yeah, and I do it with, and that's the
they
thing.
know it. They know it.
They feel where I'm
inside.
coming from.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of let's get down to it. And I mean, I always say, even if the phone rings because of their symptomatic experience, they still know something inside. I'm calling this place because I know I want more. I need more. I need to have a greater expression of life. Not a lesser experience of pain, a greater expression of life. And that's, we make sure they get that in our education. We have presentations, we have dinners. We reinforce this beautiful thing that we've created called vitality, where people get, I'm held, I'm taken care of. I am in a place where, heck, one person said to me, I know I'm in the right place simply because you looked me in the eye. And I don't have many doctors who even look me in the eye anymore.
Yeah.
That's a benchmark, that's a threshold. It's to let somebody know, I hear the experience you're having. I hear the experience that your body's expressing. Let's find out what's totally going on there. And that's how our consultation goes. Very different than the conventional, what's wrong? Throw some ice on it, throw some NSAIDs at it. I don't want anti-anything, I want pro. Let's go with pro-joy. Let's go with pro-flexibility.
Pro-social activities maybe, right?
Totally,
Things of that nature.
Get out of your house,
yourself.
get out. I mean, we just went through this 3-year experiment where everybody was told to be afraid of everything and worry about everything. You have a young one, I have a young one. That cultural programming got into a lot of kids just because they were told, wear a mask, stay at home, be afraid of germs. I'm not afraid of germs. There is the concept of, the germ theory. And I hate to say this, but it's still just a theory that germs cause disease. There's another thing called the terrain theory that says the terrain of the body dictates how your body handles any of these adversities that's thrown at it. The terrain makes the decision. I always love to say, flies don't create crap, they seek out crap. So the fly will find it no matter where it is.
Find a host body that will accept it.
That's
the virus potentially, or the germ, right?
Whatever.
Something that it could thrive in, like the fly.
We've been told that the germ is the cause of disease. No, that's not necessarily completely true. I mean, it's sometimes true.
Yeah.
But the suppression of the immune system.
Yeah.
And that's why I eat the way I do. I drink what I drink. I think what I think. B.J. Palmer, the developer of chiropractic, talked about toxins, traumas, and thoughts. The 3 T's are the things that affect this vessel. So toxins, traumas, and thoughts. Do your own edit and say, what toxins am I experiencing today? What traumas have I experienced today? What thoughts am I thinking today? And it's a nice little audit just to see, what am I paying attention to?
Yeah.
And what can I do about my thoughts? What can I do about my traumas? What can I do about my toxins?
I also, you just mentioned having a child. I as well, and I read a lot on the topic of, I guess, hiding from things, right? And being put in when you have something like a trauma. There's a question came up about social anxiety, right? And it's like, well, you start reading about what actually works with social anxiety. It's not having your parents speak for you when you're 7. It's not avoiding social situations. It is, if this is your comfort zone, it's just a small little ring outside that is where you're gonna have to push yourself to get more comfortable. And then every week, every day, every month, whatever, you just try to expand that a little bit, right? But there is no hiding from it. It would be, we have to, I guess, address whatever this deep-seated rooting problem is, right? But I feel like avoidance is a strategy that's used often now out of the sense of ease, or
well, we're always seeking comfort. We're always seeking easy. We're always seeking less effort. So we get into this point where anything that requires effort is scary and dangerous.
Yeah.
And when Kai was little and he was trying new things, or we were getting him to do different things, one of my mantras for him was, Mazepa men do hard things. So I made sure I told him, this is just who we are. We do hard things. And he got that message, and it became so much easier to try new things and to at least, see.
Yeah, that's funny you said that. That's something we've told Amy too. Had to share a little sticker or something. And speaking of bringing Easton back in the mix, we had a friend over there. I think on it, he's like, I do hard things or something.
Yeah.
And Emmy said that to her, and then she went out and bought a sticker for her water bottle that said that.
Nice.
She's like, I needed to hear that.
Yeah.
So it was cool. Yeah, but it's the parenting thing is very difficult because
It's a learning experience for sure.
everybody, I'm like, dude, everything you do matters. Every single thing matters.
We learn.
And you're going to make mistakes.
Example.
And you're going to do some terrible stuff that when your kid's older, they're going to be like, Dad, Mom, whatever, I can't believe that happened. But whatever, all right? But every little thing you do matters. You can't I don't know. That's just my take on it. I'm very serious about it. It sounds like I'm, stick in the mud, stickler, this, that, and the other. But it's like, dude, you can't do that stuff. It's like your kid's watching everything that you do. You're telling me you saw your dad, treat people. That affected you somehow, some way. Growing up in a basement where there's bodybuilders and workout people and around athletics, like that is what I'm doing today, So
we are sponges, and especially at certain ages, we're even more absorbent sponges.
Yeah.
And you can see how you're affecting your children in the positive, and if you're able to, you can see how you're reflecting it in the negative too. And
I like that
course
example
correct.
with two twin brothers or whatever. Dad's an alcoholic. One alcoholic, the other one doesn't drink ever. Why are you an alcoholic? Because Dad was. Why are you not an alcoholic? Because Dad was. The answer was the same, but they chose a different path.
And there we go deep. People use the excuse of genetics all the time.
Yeah.
Oh, it's genetic. How about it's epigenetic?
Yeah.
Because the genes are just switches. The genes are just breakers in your breaker box. But what makes something switch that gene on in somebody and not in their sibling? Or you mentioned twins. The answer was the same. But the field around the gene can be just as influenced by this as it can be by that.
Yeah.
And in some people, there's a great example of this with what's known BRCA1 and BRCA2. It's the most common breast cancer gene. And the science has gotten so much more solid with this, but it's very they see it very common in women of Jewish descent. And if there are 5 sisters that are BRCA1 and BRCA2 positive, why is it 3 developed breast cancer, but 2 didn't? Can't be genetic, because they all have the same genetic predisposition. It's got to be something else.
It's a lifestyle factor.
And there you go into that, or you go into, like I said, the toxins, the traumas, and the thoughts. It might even be, I'm afraid of getting breast cancer. You keep saying that over and over again. I mentioned earlier the law of attraction. Instead of saying, I'm going to be healthy and fit.
Yeah.
I'm taking care of this body because it's a gift, is a totally different thing. And it's not, I'm afraid of catching this or developing this. It's, I choose.
Well, you talked about the host body, right? So if you are putting yourself in a stressed state over fear of something, then your host body might be more susceptible to what it is being exposed to.
There's science on that now.
Yeah, and it's rational if you say that.
Sure.
Sure. Another thing I wanted to touch on with the epigenetics part, I brought, there's a nun study, even with brain deterioration. So they found that these nuns, they looked at their brains afterwards, and their brain is just riddled with deterioration. It's like these individuals, these ladies here should have huge, they should be showing huge signs of brain deterioration and Alzheimer's and all that stuff. But what they did with their lives was they got together, they did crosswords, and they stayed connected in their community.
They prayed together. That's a field. That's an energetic field in itself.
But that brain too, it's fairly new in the sense that you could grow new pathways.
100%.
So one dies, you can still grow 2 more. It doesn't really matter how old you are. Absolutely. So those ladies then...
Neuroplasticity is the fancy word that they use for that.
And I mean, we talked to somebody that's a surgeon. He's probably in his 50s. And maybe 5 years ago, recently I had this book. It was The Brain That Changed Himself, I think. It's a good book. Doidge, I think, Norman Doidge, I think is the author. But he, we brought that up. And he was like, this dude, incredible surgeon, but that was... When he was studying medicine, that wasn't even in there. He's like, that's not a thing. He's like, no, like there's stuff now, and he was like, he's a specialized field that he doesn't study that part.
Right.
But it was like news to him, and we were like, oh. But
that's so cool.
And the other thing too, sorry, I had 3 thoughts when you were talking. Apparently, this man, I just met this guy Dan. He's this great guy. He was telling me about a politician in the D.C. area, Westmore. And I'm like, Westmore? He wrote this book I read 10 years ago called The Other Westmore. So two boys in the same town in Baltimore. One of them 25 to life. Westmore went on a path, Oxford scholar, and now I didn't fact check the political scene, but apparently he's like a fast rising politician. Two guys, same name, 25 to life. One is thriving.
Right.
Same environment for the most part. I mean, your parents are different, but I just want to talk about that. But just because that thought popped in when you were talking,
and that's again, you got to go look at that whole idea of choices and decisions.
Yeah.
And there is a certain bit of, they always talk nature versus nurture. I think the nature part people use as a crutch or an excuse. I can't do that because of nature. The nurture is, I can do that because I've been told I can do that. And I don't think one is more important than the other. I think they're both important. The truth is, though, your nature doesn't dictate your outcomes. Your nurture oftentimes can dictate your outcomes.
And I think too with human beings, it's like we're all capable of doing great things, and it's hard sometimes. Like to make the decision to do something is very hard and it's difficult. So easy to say, right, but not always easy to do. But we're always, if there's humans that are doing great things, we're also human. We can we can do that. Right. We can do great things, and that's.
I had a mentor. I love people who use the excuse of time. I don't have enough time to, I can't do that because of time, whatever.
Yeah.
And I throw that one out once in a while.
Yeah.
I had a mentor once say, you have exactly the same 24 hours as Thomas Edison, Albert Einstein, and Mother Teresa. And I was like, oh, because it's true.
Yeah.
The thing is, I don't have time. The thing is, I choose to use my time for this instead of that. And I, like I said earlier, I'm a straight shooter. I would rather people tell me straight up what they're thinking, feeling, or experiencing than sugarcoat it. Like we have an event coming up, and people are like, "Oh, I'm going to really try to get there." It's not a try; it's a decision. I'm choosing to do your thing, and if you choose not to do my thing, that's totally okay.
Yeah.
Tell me, I'd rather not do that. People are so afraid of hurting other people's feelings. Tony Robbins talks about one of the most base states is, I'm going to make this decision because I'm afraid nobody will love me. I'll die alone. So we compromise our own needs and our own beliefs to make sure that you continue to love me, because if you withdraw love from me, I'll be alone. So they'll dance around it. I think the idea of no as a complete sentence is a really powerful thing. We'll say no to something, and then we'll say because for the other person. The no is for me. The because is for the other person. And you're not fooling anybody. The no is still the no. And I am totally okay with no's.
Were you like that in your 20s?
Yes, always.
Okay.
This is who I've always been this.
Because I'm morphing into that now, and you just kind of beat around the bush, never give a full answer.
Right,
whatever. But
nobody wins in that scenario. You feel like crap because you're not being honest.
You're
that person feels
too.
like
You're
and that person
that anxiousness because you're like, dang it, now I got to tell them.
Right.
Because the thing's in 2 days, and I eventually got to tell them, and you put it off another day, and then you're just killing yourself with that type of thinking.
Hey, are you able to make it to my event?
No.
Nope. Okay.
See ya.
We'll have more. Hope to see you at another one.
Yeah.
That's more authentic. That's also, we'll just go to honest.
Yeah.
All the other stuff isn't really true. I have to, all these other things, and
who cares, right?
I
Are you
don't
going to
care.
come or not? Just let me know.
I don't care.
Give me an
It's
answer.
okay.
Yeah.
And if you want to throw in, I still love you, just on top of that, that's okay too,
Save your excuse.
Right.
I still love you.
Bag
You're
the
not
excuse.
coming. We're still friends, all right?
We're still friends.
I don't care.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
that
that's
goes,
the way to think.
And that's kind of like how we also approach things in our office. Our paradigm in our office is everybody is welcome to stay at Vitality for as long as they want.
Yeah.
The door is always open. If you choose to go, you are welcome to come back anytime. We have one guy who moved to California, moved back here, picked up care when he got back.
Yeah.
People go away for whatever reason. And I always say the worst reason to go away is because you feel better. And the second worst reason for coming back is because it's back. We take better care of our cars than we do our own bodies. So I love the idea of we're not fixing it. My job is not to fix anything. It's to support you. There's provinces in China where if you're a family member or you get sick, you fire your doctor.
Yeah.
Can you imagine going into your medical practitioner and saying,
You're
Doc,
not fine
I
doctors.
feel great. What can you do to help me stay that way? they wouldn't know what to do. Because our allopathic system has become so reductionist, they're just looking at pieces and parts.
Yeah.
And they're skipping the whole. How is your whole person doing is what we're really working to get to. And
I don't know where that. You talked about gratitude earlier. There's like the science on gratitude. There's like an 88, PDF type thing. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna read this, but it's published by countries that, from like the medical communities in that country, right? And then there's stuff. The World Health Organization is like the 4 pillars of health: mental, physical, social, spiritual.
Absolutely.
But when you go, and unfortunately, when you talk to a medical professional, I don't think those topics get broached. They don't get brought up, and then you end up meeting people. I think people find their way to you or to somebody in that world, with somebody that will actually listen, somebody that will try to navigate these areas. And
how I address that is I say the allopathic medical, the conventional medical approach, and practitioners.
What does that mean, by the way, allopathic?
That's just what it's called.
Okay.
It means, allopathy is really, looking at all of the diseases, looking at all of what's wrong with the body, the pieces and parts again, the reductionist look. Conventional medical doctors are doing the best they possibly can with what they know, and they're stressed. I give them such a pass because the practice of medicine is no longer an art. It's not even a science anymore. It's kind of like putting together a list of symptoms with a molecule, with a pill or a potion or a lotion or this or that. And it's just looking at, how can we do this as quickly as possible? What's important.
I mean, that I don't mean to cut you, but it's like, it almost sounds like the music artist thing that we talked about earlier.
It's reductionist, yeah.
They're not able to show. They might be a beautiful artist, but that environment that they're in is not allowing them,
right,
to thrive, because they're at the whim of.
They need to pump out product.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate, but I give them a pass too. Sorry for interrupting.
That's okay. I give them a pass because they're doing the best they can with what they know. I just happen to know something different. I got a different toolbox, and it's not a better toolbox. It's just a different toolbox. Medicine. Believe me, I always preach the fact that emergency medicine is absolutely incredible. If I get hit by a train, get me to the best neurosurgeon and best orthopedist you possibly can, and put me back together. Then get me to my chiropractor. But emergency medicine is specific to emergencies. Lifestyle medicine, playing catch up with all of these things that happen to your body as a result of the choices you've made along the way over days, weeks, months, years, decades, that's really tough. Medicine doesn't have a really great track record with that, and it's not getting much better.
No,
it really isn't. And again, that's not to vilify them. It's really just looking at the system.
Yeah,
the system is, what can we do to get you out the door in 5 minutes? Because we've got all these other people coming in behind you. And I still love the idea that in our office we take our time.
Yeah,
we're still able to have a relationship. I refer to it as we're creating a covenant between you and me. And it's not doctor-patient, it's peer. It's let's go on this journey together.
And I think too, it's important. I was talking to a guy this week about, maybe it was last week, but anyway, one-to-one, right? I always feel like I had this old school pediatrician, this guy, Dr. Stein. And I remember the office, and I'm like, I feel like there was like a lady that worked at the front, and then him. It wasn't, 5 people. One to check you in, one to make sure your health insurance was fine, one to do your blood pressure, then the doctor, and then somebody else to come in and let you know what you need to do. And I'm like,
and each person asks you the same question, although you have to repeat the story 5 times before you get to the doctor.
Kind of an annoying part of that procedure. So people kind of, it's like setting the person up to kind of be annoyed. And so it's not like the environment, just that environment by itself is like not as clean as like me and you one-on-one. I want to tell you how I'm feeling, but I'm like, wait, is this the person I share this with? Or, what is going on here? Who do I, wait, I have this going on. I'm like, oh, tell that to the next person. I'm like, okay, you just want to know what my blood pressure is? Fine. Whatever.
Next. Next.
And I think that one-to-one is important. It's a social connection thing. It is, you care.
I care.
When people come in and they leave, you might not get that feeling that person cares because they're just going to come in and do this, and then they're going to leave, and then it's like an assembly line of parts instead of
a
one
machine.
thing. Yeah,
I have this beautiful love and affinity for the Hawaiian Islands and Hawaiian culture, and in the Hawaiian language, there's a term ohana.
Yeah,
and ohana means chosen family. It may be blood, it may not be blood, but it's the family I choose to consider to be my family. And we talk about when you come to Vitality, you are now part of the Vitality Ohana, and we've got you. And that's not just lip service. You literally know you're being held by the person at the front desk, by the person who's doing the exam, by the doctor who's seeing you. All of these people have one goal, and that's to up-level your life. And that's not necessarily down-regulate your symptoms. It's up-level your life.
Good. I like that. I like that verbiage. I think is important because it gets you out of the what's wrong mindset and into what's right.
Or better yet, what do you want more of? You know,
do that. Right? Do more of that.
What do you want more of? You love to garden and you can't right now. Let's make gardening the goal.
Yeah.
I had one lady. She just wanted to get back up on a horse. You know, and that was okay. Let's put it on the list. So it's not necessarily what do you want to eliminate. It's what's missing and what do you want to add.
Yeah.
Or where do you want to go that you've never gone before? That's a whole other concept.
It is, yeah.
What do you want that you've not? People always say, "Oh, I just want to be like I was before the accident." Well, what if life was crappy before the accident too?
Yeah.
You just didn't have X, Y, or Z. Instead of I want to go forward into an existence or an experience I've never had.
There's Stephen Pressfield's this great author. He wrote this book called The War of Art, and it is like, you know, the person that has that almost fatal accident then comes out and they're like, I'm going to write the book that I always wanted to write, you know? So there's always that one thing that I feel like most people have that they just don't, I don't want to say fear, but it sounds like it is that, where just taking that step is a hard step. And unfortunately, in some cases, at least in his examples, like that traumatic event is what kickstarted that motivation. But you don't want to have that traumatic event in order to pursue the things that you want to pursue.
Right. Donnie Epstein, again, I go back to my mentor. He just put out a book called The Seeker's Code. It's out several months now. And The Seeker's Code talks about your energy state. And like energy poor, energy neutral can be broken up into low, middle, high, energy rich, and super energy rich. And this continuum, this scale, dictates how you experience life, how you experience your life. He says we're not the thinker of thoughts, we're the receiver of thoughts. The original term meme was unit of consciousness. That's what meme actually means.
Is that Jung or something, Carl Jung?
It doesn't mean
psychiatrist type guys. I feel like
it doesn't necessarily mean cute kittens or puppies.
Right.
You know,
those are funny, dude.
Right? Exactly.
Some of these are great.
Yeah, but the idea is a meme is a unit of consciousness. So if you're in an energy poor state, the only memes that you are capable of downloading are associated with energy poor. So if you can get to a low neutral is probably the most dangerous one, because how you doing? Okay. How's life? Good. You know.
Is it? Yeah.
Well, that's it. Yeah, good. You know, I don't want good. I want freaking extraordinary. You know.
Yeah.
I want to suck the marrow out of life. So if somebody comes in my office and they go, not bad, I'll say, does that mean it's good? Because I'm the kind. I'll poke the bear. You know, I'll do that. How's your day? Not bad.
You got to be careful how I answer questions.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah.
What do you? I mean, 30 years in the game.
55 years in the game of life. 30 years in the profession.
There's a man I talked to, psychiatrist. I don't want to give away his cover because he lays low.
All right. That's
he
good.
told me. There's a guy he knows, a friend of his, but he's probably the guy that I spoke with is in his 70s. He knows somebody that's 92. He had to go into the doctor because of an injury or something. People were coming in. They're like, "Oh, when did you retire?" He's like, "I didn't." Like, what? What do you mean? You know, you're 92. People were coming in as if he was some sort of circus attraction to see the guy that didn't, the doctor that didn't retire. You know,
right.
What are you going to do with your time then? You said you're 55, 30 years in the game.
So you've
got an energy that is not going to probably just sit back and watch.
Here's the pivot.
Whatever it may be. What do you got for us?
I lost my dad, my dog, and my mom in the course of 14 months. You do a lot of reevaluation when you get to that point. And it was a really huge deal because it was rapid fire. And out of the three of them, my dog was the toughest because I didn't need to feed, water, or walk my parents. So it made me really kind of look at what do I want? I tell people all the time, what do you want? It made me pause. Yeah. And what I want is greater joy. I want freedom of time to do whatever I want.
Yeah.
I want to be able to experience more life with my son. And I want to have a good, loving relationship with my bigger community, my family, all of that kind of stuff. And that sometimes doesn't mean the hamster wheel. It doesn't mean the daily grind
Yeah.
in the office. I still love what I do and I love my people so much. I learned about this concept called retire in practice. Retire in practice means shift priorities, shift experiences. I'm so blessed. I have the best team that I have ever had in my office. We are an incredibly cohesive unit, and we're all working towards the same goals. We're all on the same page. We work so well together.
Seems that you guys, I mean, I've only been around you, I think, twice, but everybody, it seems like a lot of love.
A lot of love.
A lot of laughing, a lot of arm around each other, hugging, high five, and whatever it may be. You don't see that often.
That is nurtured. That is something that is our base state. Our base state is, for one thing, my thing is, if it's not fun, I don't want to do it. So practice has to be fun. We have to have fun in the office. We do a lot. I mean, there's a lot of crying. There's a lot of laughing. There's a lot of growth that happens. And we watch these people. We hold the hands of these people who are going through these life experiences. I had a lady who said, my husband died. Can I get in today? That's a whole other level. I know I need to be taken care of today. Can I get in? And yes, we will get you in no matter what. So back to your original question is, I'm making a different set of choices. You know, I'm blessed to have come to an experience in a barn with a guy I didn't know, to hear these people who moved from Oklahoma to Florida that I didn't know, and it changed the trajectory of my life. You know, my practice partner, my partner Laura, was like, hey, check out these supplements. I'm interested in these things. Would you look at these and see if they're any good? I didn't care. I wasn't really into doing something different or something new at this point. I'd used the same company in my office that I used when I was a kid, that my dad had in his office. So I was like,
that's a huge shift,
yeah,
by the way.
Absolutely.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah.
That's a ballsy move.
Serious. and I take reputation and integrity so seriously. I know this company that, you know, is from Wisconsin, that's been around since 1929. I know their products and I know how good and clean they are. Somebody can tell me something, I'll just go grab a bottle and say, do this. Take this. We have that level of trusted advisor in our office that people say, okay. When I started looking at these other products, I was blown away. I was amazed. I was like, I know you want to take these things, Laura, but I'm kind of interested in them now too. And I was like, I need to do a deep dive. I'm a science guy. So I needed to ask all the questions because I knew what questions to ask about purity and synthetic versus naturally derived, you know, all that kind of stuff. So I do not have any problem going to the highest levels. And she did an event in New Jersey while I was in Colorado. While she's still in New Jersey and I'm in Colorado, she said to me, there's this thing in Iowa and we're going to it. Before I know it, it's a Sunday and I'm booking flights and hotels and cars in Iowa for an event that was the same week on Thursday. And I got to meet with the guy who's the chief formulator, and I got to ask him the hard questions. And just going into, you know, what makes your supplements this? Because I know supplements. I mean, like I said, I've taken stuff my entire life. So I know what purity is. I also know the tricks. I know the games. I know the wording. I know the way that companies can make their stuff look a certain way when in fact it's not. I asked him all the tough questions and he was able to thoroughly and thoughtfully answer those questions for me. So to my satisfaction, which meant I brought in a whole new product line into my office for the first time in 30 years. And again, I go back to
a huge change to do. This is why I said that
I had no interest in doing that either.
But to do that is just a testament to somebody with an open mind. Like, hey, I've been doing this for 30 years. I don't care. You know, I always feel like some people just get stuck where you're not a 30-year veteran. You're repeating your first year just 30 years in a row. Like, you're not taking those steps needed. So to be in the game for 30 years, to be constantly learning, to be willing to take a chance, to go to Iowa and meet some people, I think that speaks on just the type of business that you want to have and the type of person that you are and the type of, you know, cultivating positive and good things for everybody that you come in touch with.
If this thing can improve your quality of life, I'm definitely interested. And it doesn't matter what that thing is. You know, it could be a bottle of some kind of capsules. It could be a meditation practice. It could be, hey, get on the yoga mat. You know, there's an old saying, fella talks to his guru and says, "Master, I'm having a hard time meditating for an hour." And the master says, "Good, meditate for 2 hours." You know?
Yeah.
So I always want to be the one who's meditating better or more or learning, or I don't ever want to be stagnant. Stagnant water carries no nutrients. I want to be that flowing, experiencing, you know, life, you know, again, sucking the marrow out of life.
Yeah.
So that's what was so crazy. It's like, I didn't think I was going to do that. Here I'm talking about, you know, what the next chapter looks like. Nature abhors a vacuum. All of a sudden I have all this free time because of how I set up my practice and how I'm living my life. And this new company that you know about, 3, just comes into my life. And there it is.
Its way in there, yeah. It's cool.
I didn't want it. Like I wasn't expecting it.
And there's like, you didn't say intentional community, but it is that. It's you end up talking with people and having events and hanging with people that are of a similar vibe.
Yeah.
And that, you know, they're open-minded. They'll listen to you. They'll chat with you. You'll have interesting conversations. You'll ask them to come on a podcast, and they'll just say, yeah, you know, stuff like that. And you get to travel. You were in Iowa. You ever in Iowa?
I flew through Iowa once. Right. I flew through Iowa.
We were out there. We went to an event in California. The Utah thing is awesome. We're going to do that again. But we're just, whatever. It's all good, man. You get to meet a lot of people all over the country now. You go up into New England and you know somebody there, or you go into Florida and you know somebody that's somewhat local, just through.
I'm having a lunch with somebody in Japan when I'm over there.
There you go.
See, it's so crazy how like it is that it's truly that global community.
And it's a disservice, not a disservice, but you're not living life, I think, to the fullest ability if you're not willing to like make some connections. I feel like. Sure. And this is something that I'm just learning, you know, now.
I love
to
talk.
Seeing the power of networking and all that, and being around just the social. My default answer for social stuff is always kind of no, because I would rather just hang out and like read and stay isolated in my house. You know, that's just like I don't know if it's a personality thing or what, but like
that's the mental game. We're more than just a mental state. That's where this is getting you into that, like you said, meeting people and connecting with people.
You have to do it. You have to do it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I encourage that with maybe the kids that I work with or the clients that I've had at the gym or whatever. You always encourage them to do more like social activities.
Right.
And this stuff is like the adult version of it. We're getting out there and we're talking
social
to
creatures.
cool people about cool products and interesting stuff. And you get to travel around, meet people all over the place.
And I'm a vibe guy. I'm an energy guy.
Yeah.
And the people I've met with this company have my kind of vibe. They have that really positive. They're excited and enthused about life, and that's an energy I choose to be around. If I was around people who were just constantly kind of in that low, neutral, or poor state, that drives me crazy. There's a great book called The Tao of Pooh. I don't know if you ever read it. It explains.
I didn't read it.
It explains Taoism, the concept of Taoism, through the Winnie the Pooh characters. And in that book, I know this shocks everybody, but I'm a Tigger, and other people might be Eeyores.
Yeah.
I have a real hard time with Eeyores because all they ever see is what's wrong. You know, they're always looking for their tail. Has anybody seen my tail? You know, so all of these Pooh characters are in this book called The Tao of Pooh, and it explains so much about people's personalities and their energy states. It's a really cool book.
Yeah, no, we have it in there. I never knew.
Simple book, easy read.
Like, why didn't Marisa buy a book about Winnie the Pooh? But now I know that it's a little deeper than that.
It's a little deeper, yeah.
It's a little deeper.
It's actually
Darin, anything else you want to throw in here, man? We didn't talk much about what you do with, I guess over the course of your career, you've probably done a little bit of everything in that world, right?
Yeah, I have.
And now you're just keeping the ball rolling. Changing lives.
Magic.
Doing your thing.
Magic is the word I use.
Finding joy, though.
And
that was something you said.
I think it's important that people recognize that they have far more potential than they've ever been told. And part of what we do at Vitality is either reignite that magic or maybe spark that magic for the first time ever.
That's great.
And it's critical to say, you've been told something. You may not even believe that completely, but it's still this cultural programming that you're following. And I'm not sure that's the greatest approach because it's not reality.
No.
Reality is what you, again, apply energy to. And when you apply a certain amount of energy, the universe has no choice but to give you what it is that you're working for and working towards.
That same author, too, The War of Art, talked about he gives his, he took it from, I think, trying to think of which book it was, the Odyssey maybe, but it's something to the Muse. So every time he sits down to write, he recites these lines, giving thanks to the Muse.
Right.
And he says, if I say this every day and I show up to do the work every day and say this, the Muse will reward me with work. And every day he shows up to write, he recites his poem to the Muse, and
there it happened.
he puts the trust in.
It is always good to have a muse. That always is a good
He's
thing.
like, 99 out of 100 pages suck, but I'm still going to do it, and I'm still going to follow this path because it's going to come, So it's having like, 99 pages suck. It's not that vibe.
But you got one page of gold.
Right,
I got
exactly.
1 page of gold.
And if you do 1 page of gold 365 days a year, that's probably, that book is gold then, right?
Yeah.
All right, man. 75 minutes is what I told you. We just hit it.
Look at that. Beautiful.
Right,
hey, I
Have a good
really
day.
enjoyed this. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure. Again, we didn't know each other 2-3 months ago. We didn't even know each other.
No.
And that's that. Like my circle has expanded by knowing you.
Yeah.
And by you asking me to come on here and talking with everybody, and just, I'm grateful. Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming.
You bet.
I appreciate it, man.
You got it,
All right.
man.
See you, dude.